What's up guys, happy Friday. Big news, the UN is leaving the building, which means no more traffic disasters. But that is not your concern. You want to know about tips and gains. Tips and gains. Today we'll talk about fat. Okay? So fats, they are very misunderstood. It seems to be there's either they will kill you right away or they're awesome for you, they can make you huge. There seems to be no middle ground. So fat is an essential nutrient, right? You cannot live without it. You will die. We get that straight. Then there are three groups of fats. There's the trans fats, saturated and unsaturated. The trans fats, I'm afraid, I have to confess, was one of the few, very few, German inventions that went wrong. Sorry. We invented this in the 1860s when people didn't have fridges, when they moved to the cities, so they could store food, such as margarine or so, in their apartments. And then we found out it causes, heart disease. So anyways, those are banned in most countries by now. So that leaves us with saturated and unsaturated. At a very, very top level, the saturated fats are basically solid at room temperature and the unsaturated are not. So saturated fats, they are called saturated because they have single bonds that are open and they can be saturated with a hydrogen atom. That would be your animal fats, milk fats, butter, but also could be such as like palm kernel oil, coconut oil. These foods, they are like more of a mix between unsaturated and unsaturated, but they tend to have a higher percentage of saturated fats. And then by the same token, there are the unsaturated ones, which is liquid at room temperature. It would be your olive oil, could be nuts, nut butters, and then fish oil, tuna, salmon, that kind of thing. So conventional wisdom holds such. Saturated fat, bad, heart disease, cancer, death. Unsaturated fat, eternal happiness, trip to the Mediterranean, everything is great. Well, not so fast. First of all, like with everything, calories matter. So if you overconsume, let's say olive oil, and you get really, really heavy, there will be buildup in your arteries and it will not be a good idea. Then people also confuse causation and correlation. So let's say people that consume saturated fats a lot often tend to have an unhealthy caloric intake in the first place. So let's say they're eating cheese, but the cheese on a cheeseburger that comes with fries and soft ice cream and a Coke, right? So now of course that meal will wreak havoc. Whereas on the other hand, you have somebody who buys like a nice piece of Gruyere or Emmentaler, eats it with a cracker. He also consumes saturated fats, but it wouldn't be to the extent that it would be harmful, right? So amounts matter and overall lifestyle matters. So for instance, now that we segue into cholesterol, which is a sterol that is responsible for functions of nerve membrane, nerve endings, reaction, brain functions, and sex hormones, such as building vitamin D, testosterone, estrogen, SBHG, and so on and so forth. That is something that the body creates. You can also consume animal fats to get the raw ingredients, so to speak, to make it. And it depends. So the more active you are, the more cholesterol will be used up in terms of cell repair and all that kind of thing. If you're very sedentary and you consume a lot of cholesterol, that could be a problem. So for the longest time, the little egg yolk was blamed with its 250 milligrams of cholesterol. That did it in. But again, there's causation and correlation. So a lot of people eat eggs béarnaise with béarnaise sauce and bacon, and then they say, that egg yolk did it. It's like, no, the overall intake did it. That's what made you ill. So cholesterol, again, is needed in the body. You will die without it. But of course, overconsumption can be harmful. So now, what about practical applications of fat for bodybuilding? Like I said, it is needed because it makes your testosterone, which you need for them gains, right? So now there's bulking and then there's cutting, right? So there's obviously different intakes. So for bulking, you can go as high as a gram per pound of body weight, if blood levels allow that. For cutting, I wouldn't go lower than 0.4 for a while. So that can become unhealthy because then there's issue with like nails, hair, overall energy. But if it's just for a couple of weeks to get you to that body fat level where you need to be, fine, that's okay. And then you gradually taper back up. Watch the video in the reverse dieting, okay? So, in conclusion, as always, do not get fooled by the hype. Don't buy the hype. Fat is neither evil, nor is it awesome. It just is. And you need it, otherwise you shall die. Again, cholesterol, same thing. Overconsumption is an issue, underconsumption is also an issue. You know. And then always remember, the overall picture matters. How many calories do you take in? How much do you train? How do you sleep? Are there any other drugs in place? And so on and so forth. So that's my overview on fats. As always, comment, like, ask me questions, subscribe, so whatever. Don't send me nasty pictures, please, because then my kids, they're just like, whoa, what's that going on? And with that, Mike out.